This is the Milo Beasley Show. This is the Milo Beasley Show. There's only one thing you need to know. This is the Milo Beasley Show. And now, here's your host, Milo Beasley.
And welcome to the Milo Beasley Show. Episode number 303. Are we at 303? Wow. We're at 303 already. It's insane. I'm super excited for this week's guest, although I don't know if I could actually introduce him properly, but you know him as the quintessential stud muffin. Please help me welcome at this time, Joel Gertner.
Well. Thank you for having me, Milo.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I'm super excited. I've been a fan for a long time. I was, 15 years old in 1995 when, ECW really started, becoming a thing. And I started wrestling when I was 18 in 1998, still when that buzz was still super high. So to say that ECW influenced me would be a gross understatement. So
you're familiar enough with my work that I don't actually need to be like, it is I, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel. I slid in and out of your mom's midsection easily, and now I am speaking with the one and only Milo Beasley Gertner. You don't need any of that, right? We can just skip formalities.
Yeah,
I can be myself.
I did get to see a little bit less than a year under my training. I went to ECW. I had some friends who were friends with Tommy Rogers, essentially. And so he was doing ECW at that time and went to Guilty as Charged. And I tell you, like, seeing your shtick in person just really blows away. Sorry, I don't mean to, blow smoke up your butt, but totally blows away the TV persona. And it is just, how did you, especially with TNN, how did you get, or did you just not care? I was like, how did you get around that? It didn't seem like anybody cared.
We just didn't care. We figured if they wanted us warts and all, and they wanted us for what we were. And it says Extreme on the marquee, and they knew that we weren't the other two. And certainly a few months in, by the time we probably got wind that they were talking to WWE, and we understood that we were the guinea pigs and we were the arrows. We were the pioneers that were getting the arrows in our back. No, I don't think we did care. I think we were just there. We were there to be us. I mean, when you want EC, it's like Kiss. You wanted the best, you got the best. I mean, you wanted Extreme, you got Extreme.
Absolutely. So what did you start while you were still in school? How old were you when you first started the wrestling business?
Yeah, so it depends how you measure. I mean, the wrestling business. So I was a tape trader back when that was a thing. So and that meant that I was not only trading tapes with other tape traders, and I was not only selling to fans, but I was also selling to people in the business. Like, Cactus Jack found me when he was in WCW, and he wanted the top 100 matches of the 80s, an 8-volume set. So I sold it to him. And so, if you count getting tables at conventions and having, a side wrestling business that was kind of predicated alongside the actual wrestling business, then I probably started when I was about 14. I started getting the Observer when I was 13. And I started as talent. I can never figure out exactly what the date is, so I always tether it to my 16th birthday, and the beginning of that, I think, junior high school year. So I tether it to like September of 91-ish is when I got in. So based on that, in a few months, we're going to be looking at my 30 years in.
That's amazing. Like So you performed at shows while you were still in high school. Did that help with the ladies at all?
It hindered because, here I am and I have to miss I had to miss my 10th grade dance. I had to miss my 11th grade dance, whatever it was. I had to miss certain events because of wrestling, because wrestling happened on Saturday nights. So it actually, no, I wouldn't say that it did help at all. What was really weird was junior year, we had a teacher come to school from California. And he had a pro wrestling background. His name is Eric Anderson, and he's done some jobs on ECW TV. And he was the Ebony Blade, and he was the Gemini Kid, and he's well known in the California area, and now is also in the New England Wrestling Hall of Fame because he went from California to New York. From there, he went to the Boston area, and now he's back in California. But he came to Brooklyn to my school as a very young teacher, kind of fresh out of college. So I was like 16, 17. He was like 22. And we're walking the halls during the school day, junior year, senior year, as a teacher and a student. Now, he was teaching younger grades, so he wasn't my teacher, but he was a teacher and I was a student. And then, on the weekends, we'd be at the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym, and I'm Joey Jaguar managing the Outsiders, and he's one of the Outsiders. So,
oh my God, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. And then you went to Cornell. Actually, I know somebody who's actually at Cornell right now. So it's really weird with COVID and online classes. So they don't get the full college experience. But yeah, I actually know somebody at Cornell right now. But so you. I guess that was during your first reign at ECW, right? Is that during that time?
So one kind of got in the way of the other. I think my first 2 years at Cornell, I was still kind of doing indie stuff. I wasn't in ECW yet because I started at Cornell in September of '93, and I started in ECW September of '95 when I was about 4 years in. So first couple of years of Cornell, I was in wrestling, but not in ECW. Junior year was a year where I was juggling Cornell during the week and ECW on weekends. And it was by the end of junior year that I just said, I hope this thing takes off. I'm willing to gamble on me. I'm willing to gamble on it. I can always go back to college. I'd rather regret doing something than not do it, and in the future regret having not done it. And I said, I'm done.
That is incredible. I always love people who are willing to bet on themselves. And yeah, I mean, I would say that you had 30 years now you've been doing this, and you're still around today and popular. I mean, I when I was telling people that I had you on the show today, they were like, what? Yeah. They were super excited. So, hopefully they were as excited as me. So did you ever train to be a wrestler, or was your mindset that you were going to be either a ring announcer or a manager from the go?
The answer is yes to both of those, but yes, more to the second one. I am not an athlete. I always knew that my bread and butter wasn't bell to bell in between the ropes, blood, sweat, and tears. I knew that I was a talker. I knew that I was a promoter. I knew that I was a writer. I knew that I was vocal, creative, but I wasn't really physical, with the exception of, I guess, taking bumps. As a manager, you take bumps, you take everybody's finish. You're kind of a crash test dummy. So I did that. And with ECW, that also entails, chair shots, going through tables and stuff like that. So I make it sound like it's completely non-physical. I guess it was physical. I did take the first 1 or 2 classes. I was all decked out in my Everlast logo t-shirt with my matching Everlast logo shorts. And I did learn all I needed to know, because, they say all you need to know you learn in kindergarten. All I needed to know about taking ECW bumps and chair shots, they're not going to teach you in wrestling school anyway. But I learned the exception to that, which is how to protect yourself by taking bumps, including tucking your chin and your neck, and running the ropes and stuff like that. Just for somebody like me who might turn up doing like color commentary on an IPPV, stuff like that is just super, super helpful. Even if it seems like learning how to run the ropes in one of your only 2 wrestling school lessons might not be helpful. Stuff like that is super helpful because I can now call a match. You know, I was doing, I don't remember if it was Extreme Rising maybe in Pittsburgh, like 5 or 10 years ago. And Sabu at the time was 40 or 45, whatever age he was, and he did something crazy. And I said, now you watch what just happened. You see what happened when Sabu, age 40, age 45, did. And what I do is I walk it all the way down to, and meanwhile, you, 20 years old, 25 years old, maybe in your mother's basement, are watching and saying, you know what? I could do that at least as well. Let me tell you something. As somebody who's done it, I'm not even sure you'd be able to run the ropes, let alone do what Sabu just did. So having done it allows me to know that everything about the physicality of pro wrestling is so much more difficult and nuanced than somebody who's proficient at it makes it look.
Right.
And I use that in commentary just to kind of get a certain point across.
Absolutely. And now, I mean, I've seen you take some wicked bumps, some chair shots, the total elimination from the Eliminators. What would you say? Do you have like a moment where you're like, man, like that one really hurt?
No, this and this is a pleasant memory now looking back, and this is because he's on my mind, and this is not to be misconstrued as me speaking ill of the dead, but maybe the closest thing, New Jack got me one time with a vacuum cleaner in between the legs, and man, momentarily I saw stars from that. But that was just, I shifted or he, no harm, no foul and not his fault. It just happens. But there was that. No, the chair shots, they don't feel, it's hard to describe.
Right.
I'll tell you, a lot of stuff when you're out there performing and there's hundreds or a few thousand people out there, and you know that there's 2 or 3 cameras on you,
Right.
and you've got that adrenaline and also that perfectionist itch, like there's so much going through your mind and you want to make sure you're selling it right. I don't know, man, it's like Jesse said in the movie, I think, like, you ain't got time to bleed. It's just the chair shot is not designed for what it would be designed for in a street fight. If you would ever find a chair shot in a street fight, there it's not about the person getting hit being like, oh, I'm about to get hit by a chair in 2 seconds. Let me make sure that I sell this right. It's not that. But within the context of pro wrestling, there's a lot of stuff that happens that in a different context is absolutely assault. But in ECW, it was a Friday night spot show, you know what I mean? Or it was Saturday night at work, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I hope that answered the question. I think I kind of lost a little bit of track of the question.
Yeah, there's nothing like adrenaline. That drug of adrenaline will get you through pretty much any night out there. I mean, to a certain extent, but yeah. How long were you with ECW before you got put with the Dudleys?
Yeah, so September of 95, Devon starts up around December, January 95, 96. I ring announce November to Remember 95. I ring announce probably until the summer, and then They had me with a bunch of different acts. I bounced back and forth. They were trying me with different gimmicks before the Dudleys. I got put with Axel and Devon as heels. That spun off into, was it Devon turning on Axel, the turning face? And then Devon turns the rest of the Dudleys heel. I was with them by April of 97, so for sure. You know what month in 96 I was put with the Dudleys? I'd have to look back. I want to say maybe mid to late second quarter to third quarter. So I want to say, give or take 9 months to a year in ECW before being with the Dudleys.
But I think that goes to show, one, Paul's vision at the time, and two, your talent. He obviously saw that something, like, okay, well, maybe this thing didn't work, this thing didn't work, this thing didn't work, but I like this guy. There's something there, and something will stick eventually. So it sounds like that's exactly what happened.
He kept moving me sideways, and sometimes out of necessity, but whether it, a lot of it thanks to him, and a lot of it thanks to me, and a lot of it thanks to the talent that I was working with. A lot of the time, if not all of the time, being moved sideways meant being moved up. It worked out.
Right.
I started out, timekeeper and backup ring announcer. Then I was a ring announcer. Then I was a foreign language ring announcer for Spanish and Japanese. Then I was a heel ring announcer. Then as a heel ring announcer, I stayed kind of a heel ring announcer and kind of a manager and did whatever role I had with the Dudleys, and did that until I became color commentator and co-host of TNN, which was the flagship show. So I think if I'm not the only one, I'm one of a handful of people, I think, in wrestling that have ever gone from being the timekeeper to the co-host of the show. But I just, Bob Ortiz was gone. I was the primary ring announcer. Bob Ortiz came back, I want to say June of 96. I got moved to being a heel. I just, I kept getting moved sideways, and it kept working out. And
then was there ever a time, because, the Dudleys got nuclear heat. Was there ever a time that you were legitimately scared that Atlas Security was not going to stop what was happening outside the ring?
No. You've got to get through them, and then you've got to get through Big Dick, and then you've got to get through Bubba, and then you've got to get through Devon. And then if it gets really bad, we wouldn't have liked to have broken kayfabe, but if it got really bad, first they would have emptied the locker room of all the heels to help the Dudleys.
Right.
And if it kept getting worse, they would have emptied it out of all the baby faces. By that time, the cops would have been there. So it's you just have to kind of logically be like, yeah, it's ECW. Yeah, it's the absolute craziest workplace in America, but it's Saturday night. It's America.
Right.
Hey, we're in Staten Island, New York. It's right across the bridge from where I grew up in Brooklyn. What's the worst that could possibly happen? And thankfully, the worst that could possibly happen never happened. And what did happen, was not bad enough that we can be here to talk about it.
Do you have a particular memory of one that got like what I guess would be the closest, like the most you've pissed off a crowd?
I remember one Staten Island being bad, and I remember we were in Pennsylvania one time. My buddy Sebastian knows this better. He's got a memory like a steel trap, but we were, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if it was Willow Grove or we were in like a town. We were in we were in kind of a suburban kind of town, but one that had a National Guard branch. And we were actually doing the show at the Armory. So we were in the home of the National Guard.
Right.
And a riot breaks out. So who do you call? The National Guard. Why? Because, if there's a fight at a firehouse, what happens? The firemen slide down the ladder and they put the fight out. So we didn't have to call the National Guard because we were already in their home on a Friday night. And man, the one thing I remember about that is And again, another fond memory from somebody who's passed, but Tracy Smothers. And again, my buddy Sebastian knows this story better than me, but like Tracy Smothers was like, he was getting out of the shower or something, and he was putting his clothes and putting his watch on or something, and he was like, "How bad is it? What's going on? There's a riot. It's bad." And somebody was like, they brought out the dogs, and the dogs don't know who to go after, something like that. And Tracy he gives somebody, he's like, "Hold my watch. Ain't nobody on this crew doing a job for a dog." And he was ready to go like fight the dog, and he's fought bears before, so who better to fight a dog? But dude, I don't know, man. Again, like every night something's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not always gonna be a riot. It's not always gonna be, it isn't Christmas every day. It's not gonna
Right.
be like that town in South Carolina where an hour and a half before the show, there's this woman in the locker room, and I don't recognize her. Nobody, why is she here? Is she getting a tryout? No, she's not somebody's wife. She's not somebody's girlfriend. And then like an hour and a half before the show, she calls us all into a room, and she's like, "All right, so this is how you do it." And she starts to get undressed, and she starts smoking a cigarette with her vagina. Not, you know what I mean? So every day is different. Not every day is Christmas. Some days it's going to be a riot, and you're not going to be watching. Some days you're going to have like Ricky Morton or Robert Gibson do a card trick where they essentially put something in your hand that wasn't there, and when you open up your hand from a fist, there's a playing card, and like your mind is boggled. Like it was something different every weekend, and I think that's part of why I left Cornell, was because I'm 20 years old. I have this chance to do this thing. Nothing at Cornell is kind of really keeping my attention to where, because I wanted to do TV and radio. So I would have been a better fit for Ithaca College anyway, which was a mile down the road. The only business I had being at Cornell was that it was the best school that I could get into. But with the exception of like being sports director at the radio station off campus, or like, working with Cornell Concert Commission and, promoting shows and stuff,
Right.
nothing actually at school is kind of doing it for me. So I think it was a no-brainer to leave and try to ride ECW until the wheels fell off of it, because it was just constantly different and constantly fun.
Absolutely. Now, with it being, I guess this is kind of a two-part question. It's, here we are in the 2020s. The world has changed. Do you think that you would be able to say the things that Joel Gertner said in the 90s, and here we are in 2021?
I think maybe I could. It would be a lot more subtle. It would be a lot more nuanced. It would be a lot less profane. But with entendre and stuff, I think I could. I don't think I need to. That's the gimmick that took off. That was my big break. It's
Right.
what I'm best known for. But I'm not a one-trick pony. I was Joey Jaguar before I was ever the quintessential stud muffin Joel Gertner, your prototypical heel, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, snot-nosed punk that verbally writes checks that he can't cash physically. I did that, and have, an acting background, and that goes all the way back to, middle school, high school. And then, even lately in my adult life, have done stand-up comedy, have done voiceover, have done background acting. So I probably could, but don't need to. I probably, even if I kept the quintessential stud muffin name, I think I could probably rely on dialing some of that down a bit and tweaking it up to make up for it with aspects of Joey Jaguar, who, was never seen on anywhere near the level or the scope that the quintessential Stud Muffin was.
All right. And then again, the second part to that is here we are in 2021, and something, a chair spot happens, a table spot, it's ECW chants. Did you think that in 1995, 1996, that 25 years later, that there would still be ECW chants on national television?
So as someone who started in September of 95, close. Like I don't know that I thought that in 95, but I think by about, let's call it 98, when we were still really creatively in our prime and our peak and holding our own against both WWF and WCW. If you would have told it to me then, after working for the company for about 3 years and towards the end of the Dudley run, I would have believed it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you think that after the purchase of ECW and everyone going there, them doing One Night Stand, did you think that there was possibly a spot on that WWE roster for Joel Gertner? Or did you think, maybe I'm not their cup of tea, because at that point, super PG?
Yeah. Not up to me. I was loyal to ECW, so I never wanted to leave there if I didn't have a reason. So from 95 to 01, I was there. I was bought, and I actually signed a 3-year deal in April or May of 99. So if it would have gone to termination, it would have gone almost kind of to the middle of 02 if there had been such a thing for us. So from part of 95 to part of 02, I was on the books with them. But if I had it my way, I mean, of course, from 02 on, I'd have been there and I'd still be there and I'd have stayed there if I had it my way. But, it's not a question for me. It's a decision for them to make. And so I did the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view, the first one in 05. And Tommy Dreamer, who was my talent relations rep, he said, treat it like an audition, because, we're thinking about stuff and we're looking at stuff and we're looking at you and just, you want to put your best foot forward. He, along the lines of, I don't know, he probably didn't say it this way, but don't treat it like a payday. Don't treat it like a gig. Treat it like an audition. I treated everything. I treated every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If it was a Thursday, it was Thursday. Every time I go through the curtain, it's my first and last time. I treat it like an audition. So I appreciated being told that, but I didn't need to be told that because I would have done that anyway. But I don't know, man. I did a couple of dates with TNA. I did the one date with WWE. A few years later, they brought me back to the studio to do talking head stuff for an ECW OMG compilation clip show, and also for the Dudleyz set. And I think some of my stuff was used for the top 50 OMG moments.
Right.
I think none of my stuff was used in the Dudley set. Check cleared, but check's not what it's about. You know what I mean? I've had people tell me my whole life, and in my less humble moments, in moments where I try to really jack up my self-esteem, I believe them that I could be doing a handful of things that, no matter how high I could rise to the top of professional wrestling, would pay better than professional wrestling. So in this life, it's not just about how much money you have, you keep, you make. It's about the lasting it's about enjoying yourself, I think, and it's about your legacy. And I've always loved the wrestling business. It's always been the thing that I enjoy the most. It's always been what I think my calling is. I think it's, what I do best of whatever I do. And, was there a spot on their roster for me? Could WWE have me on their roster and benefit as such? Yes.
Absolutely.
Does WWE absolutely need to have me on their programming? No. Could WWE pay me enough to where I would be to the moon thrilled with my contract and yet still make enough money from me as an asset and a draw that they would come out the fiscal winner for writing me such a contract? Yes. So it's a tough question to answer.
Right.
I think, I think with the right push and with the right creative behind it, and I think I'd be a good fit there. I think I'd love to work there at some point, on a more regular, on a more full-time basis. But if there's a spot for me, I don't know. I'm sort of I'm along the same lines and in the same mold of Paul Heyman. And
right.
right, so you wonder, like, if they have Paul Heyman, you know what I mean? Like, if
Right.
you're casting a movie and, like, you want Mila Kunis and you can afford Mila Kunis, so you reach out to Mila Kunis and you find out what she needs and you pay Mila Kunis and you can afford Mila Kunis and you have Mila Kunis and Mila Kunis has come to work and Mila Kunis is on week 4 of shooting. Like, do you go out and look for a Mila Kunis type? Like, probably,
Right.
There's no reason.
Right.
Could there be, I'll tell you what, man. Paul is a mentor of mine. Paul gave me so many breaks, so many shots, so many opportunities. I owe it all to him. What I would love to do is work a program with him. I would love to be the anti-Paul. I would love to be the young, up-and-coming Paul that's trying to take food out of the master's mouth because I'm ungrateful for everything he's ever done for me. Something like that I think would be fun, but might necessitate too much of a backstory.
Right.
But even with 3 hours on Monday and 2 on Friday, who knows if they have the time for it? You know what I mean? So it's it's tough. But would I'd love to one day be there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously, except for Paul, really, there's no mouthpieces. So perhaps that could be a thing. What I would love to see, because I grew up watching wrestling in the 80s and early 90s, and I knew, almost every bad guy had a manager. There was Stables, there was the Heenan family, there was J.J. Dillon had the Horsemen, and so it's one thing that I think wrestling misses today is that mouthpiece manager that ends up getting his.
Where I'm blessed is that even though I'm about 30 years in the business as a performer, I'm also just around 45 years old. And as somebody who's not in there physically and between the ropes and everything we talked about before, as a talker, as a hype guy, as an advocate, as a manager, whatever you want to call it, you see what Paul's out there doing right now in his prime, at his peak, 10 years older than me at age 55. And that makes me say to myself, look, if I'm not in WWE a year from now, maybe 5 years from now. And if I'm not in WWE 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now. Because guys like you're talking about, the Heenans, the Albanos, the Blassies, these guys were out there making money at 65 and 70. I've got a generation until I'm that age. So I just try to stay fresh and try to stay relevant and keep working.
And I would love to see you. I think that there's a place. If there's not a place on television, I personally think, again, not to blow smoke up your butt, but I personally think that there's a spot at the PC for you. So Well, obviously Paul doesn't have time. He has time for TV, but he doesn't have time to be at the PC every day working on promos. And I think that's where I would love to see you, help people honing their craft. One thing that I do want to do now is we're going to jump into our first of our 2 mini games here. Is called the Milo Beasley Show Frequently Asked Questions. These are the same 5 questions that I ask to every guest. There is no wrong answer. The only wrong answer is you're going to hate me for some of these questions because you're like, oh, why are you going to ask these dumb questions? All right. So question number 1. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh man, it depends how far back you go. Geez, the first one
that you can remember, like
because I do a podcast. I do a couple of podcasts. I do the 69-minute Eargasm. That's me and Grant Fletcher, and I do monthly. Me and Blue Meanie and Josh Chernoff. We do That Was Extreme on ad-free shows, Patreon, and there's a running deal going on That Was Extreme relating to Topanga. Danielle Fisher, and so I constantly have her on the brain because of the stuff that we do on that show.
Right. She's a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, I've heard that.
She used to go out to like PWG out in Hollywood.
Yeah,
that's where she was.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely an answer. But when you say first. I think the first woman that I saw inside that box that I thought maybe would smile if she looked back at 6-year-old me would be Ann Jillian on a sitcom called It's a Living about waitresses. Probably on the ABC like 1980 to 81 lineup or something. But yeah, I'd have to say my very first celebrity crush was probably Ann Jillian.
That's awesome. All right. Question number 2. What is your guilty pleasure song?
Man, Into the Night by Benny Mardones. He released it in 1980. And then he came back and this was unheard of. It was almost like Hogan Andre and Hogan Andre, where they told you it never happened in 1980 and 1987, but only the people who knew. The song came out in 1980, big enough hit, everybody knew it. It goes away 7 years later, not remixed. The same exact song shows up again, and it's like heel Sergeant Slaughter if he would have come back, but as heel Sergeant Slaughter instead of babyface Sergeant Slaughter. Like the same exact song drops 7 years later, and it's a fire song. So Into the Night by Benny Mardones. Gosh. I ran a promotion called MXW. We started every show. We would count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2. And we started every show with Somebody Told Me by The Killers. That's a great song. God. You know what's going to happen, right? We're going to do all of these FAQs. You're going to thank me. I'm going to thank you. We're going to say goodbye. And then 5 seconds later, I'm going to be like, oh, man, I forgot.
This is why I say the questions are easy, but you're going to hate me for them because you're going to think about them for the rest of the day. And I apologize.
Yeah. Man, guilty pleasure song. Alicia, Too Turned On by Alicia. I used to really like freestyle music, which a lot of people don't know freestyle. It was like, there were like 3 cities where people knew what freestyle music was, but it was a dance music in the late 80s. So there's that. Yeah, man, I've got a few. I love Nickelback. I love Nickelback. I love the lyrics. I love the beats. Like, I fight people about Nickelback. I'm proud of this.
Their first album was Silver Side Up. Is that the name of it? Was that the name of their first album?
Their first album.
Or Silver Side, was that the name? The one that had like like how you remind, was that, I forgot, but that first album was, or maybe it was their second album. It was full of bangers.
Everything they do, Next Contestant, and just like, dude, first of all, that Raw song that they did, the song that they did that got chosen as the entrance music, that song just keeps getting better and better and better. Like, I have that song in my YouTube algorithm, and I'll be walking down the street and that song comes on, and it's like I enjoy that song more every time I hear it. Yeah, man. No, I went to one of their shows. The whole night is on fire. It's really amazing.
Agreed. Yeah. Did he break his acoustic guitar? Did he do that shtick?
Dude, he did everything. Let me tell you something. One of the 5 things, like if these FAQs were about the 5 things that you're proudest of in life, one of the 5 things, as somebody who my wife will tell you is addicted to social media and just sits on Twitter all day, one of the 5 things in my life, I think, that I'm proudest of is that Nickelback follows on Twitter only like 600 or so accounts, and they follow me. And
that's
dude, they were high up on my list before I realized that. But like, I love them. So I don't know if you want to call that a guilty pleasure, because
I think honestly, so, because I think they get all bad rap.
I don't get it. I think it's, I really don't get it, but oh well.
All right, question number 3. This is if your life depended on it, would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? What do you think you could take in a fight?
So it's not about size. You could always get defeated by something smaller than you.
Especially if there's 100 of them.
And the fact that the duck-sized horses, number one, like you said, there are 100 of them. Number 2, they're duck-sized, but at the end of the day, what are they? They're horses. So they have to have attributes that horses have. Yes. What do horses have? Horsepower. What does horsepower run? Stuff like mechanical cars. So I think I would try to go after the one big thing and hope that it was kind of lummox enough or dumb enough, or that I could just outsmart it, because it's a lot easier, even if it's big, to take out one soul or one body than it is to take out 100 smaller, powerful things. So I would go with 1 giant horse-sized duck.
I'm going to have to agree with you, because, I mean, think about it, just like 100 ants. There's nothing smaller than an ant virtually. But if 100 of them were to attack you, it would not be a good day. All right.
Arguably the only thing measured tangibly on Earth that can be measured in the quadrillions, not the billions or the trillions, but the only thing that can be measured in the quadrillions are ants.
Learn something. All right, here's another one. You're going to hate me. I apologize in advance. Question number 4. What is your favorite movie quote?
Wow. I quote a lot of Shawshank Redemption.
You know, you're not the first person to say that on the show.
I quote a lot. There's 5 or 10 from there. I quote a lot of Shawshank Redemption. I quote, and I always get the quote wrong verbatim, but I quote, "Every time we win a game, we rip off a piece," from Major League. And I quote a bunch of stuff from Major League. There was a great monologue that Alec Baldwin does in a movie called Malice that also has a good monologue by Nicole Kidman's mother character. Movie quote. And then in Bronx Tale, there's like a motorcycle gang that shows up and they start causing trouble. And they're asked to leave multiple times. and don't, and keep causing more trouble. And it's this gang against just like 3 or 4 of the Italian local neighborhood dudes that run the place. And all of a sudden, Sonny goes to the door and he locks it from the inside. And he was like, I asked you nicely to leave. Now you can't leave. And stuff like that is cool beans, man. I like stuff like that. Somewhere in there, you've got the quote that I quote the most, I think.
Right. And then the last question would be, finish this sentence. I would be a millionaire if I had $1 every time
I ate dinner at Denny's at 5:30 in the morning after filming a promo in Dudleyville. Probably that. I would honestly, something that came up on this podcast though, is I get asked a lot. The question that you asked about WWE,
mm-hmm.
I get asked that on Twitter quite a bit, which is interesting, seeing as though it's not something that I have an answer to or an answer for. But that falls in the category, I think, of I'd be a millionaire if I had $1 every time. Lately, the way the stock market's been going for the last few weeks, I'd be a millionaire if I had $1 every time I lost $1. But yeah, probably that. You know what? Or my cat asking for food in a given day. If I had a $20 bill for every time that she asked me for food, I could probably make a living at it and never have to leave the house.
Yeah. So for folks who may tune to your Twitter for the first time, they may be surprised that you're out there throwing out stock advice and stuff like that. How did you get involved in the stock market and keeping close tabs on the stock market?
I've always been interested ever since I was a teenager. My dad used to invest. He still does, but back then he did. And I was just kind of into it and just, just kind of, thought it was real interesting that you could just invest in these companies that you got behind. And if you thought that they'd sell a lot of product and grow, that your money could grow alongside with them. And yeah, I've just kind of dipped in and out of it for the better part of 30 years or so, and have had some success and have had some failure. But I'm a big math guy. As much as I enjoy talking and words and communicating and being able to tell a story, I'm also a big math guy and a data guy and a numbers guy. And so it kind of, it serves that monster as well. Yeah, I love stocks. I think right now is a real interesting time. But I think that's the beauty of stocks is, you can, if you think tomorrow will be a better day, and it is, and you're right, you can make money. If you think tomorrow will be lean, and you're right, you can make money. It's like they say, bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. So you can do well in the market if you kind of can see the trends and analyze it.
All right. So, and then we're going to do our second of our mini games. It's called the Milo Beasley Show Top 5. I'm going to ask you a random question. I kind of want to, I'm leaning towards two different ways. One is an ECW question, like a Dudley question. The other is a stock market question. So we'll do two of them. So we'll start with this one. Top 5, random order, doesn't have no particular order. ECW wrestlers from the 90s that you would have thought would have made good Dudleys.
Wow. Roadkill would have been a good Dudley. as our Amish export.
Right. Right.
Because Big Daddy Dudley would get around. You know?
Absolutely. He would absolutely stop in Amish country to pick up some ice cream.
I mean, the sheep herders wound up being Dudleys, and they're all the way down under. So, you know, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is only so far from Philly. So, Roadkill would have been a great Dudley. Gosh. You know, this is tougher than you would think, because
I imagine, because you still have to keep that lore of being a Dudley a thing, but at the same time, I mean,
like
yeah.
Sandman's not a Dudley and doesn't need to be, and it wouldn't make sense for him to be. Same goes for New Jack, same goes for Tommy Dreamer, and same goes for Raven. So you kind of have to think about who maybe didn't get to be with the company long enough, or didn't get a chance enough, or was missed. See, we didn't really miscast anybody.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think so maybe there is no right answer, because Jeff Bradley, the original Dudley, he was one of my trainers here in Florida. Nice. So I always wanted to be a Dudley. Always. And so I asked him when I was training, I was like, hey, so what do you think the chances are of me, you know, being a Dudley? And he was like, none. I was like, all right, carry on.
No, all right, so Roadkill, I guess, is the only one I can come up with. I guess.
Right, so then we'll do the other one. Top 5 stocks to watch right now.
God.
None, because the market is piss poor.
Dude, it's so in the toilet right now. I went on Twitter last night. I was like, and after I did it, I couldn't. I was like, I was in bed, and I told my wife, I was like, I just said that the stock market's probably going to crash in the next 6 months. She's like, why do you do stuff like that? I'm like, because who cares? Like, nobody cares. It's just Twitter. God damn it. See, here's the thing. Like, when you're in the market, and especially, God forbid, if you're on margin, right, which is like credit, you know, you're always told buy the dip, because buy low, sell high. So when prices are low, but the problem is, especially if you're on margin, when prices are low, you don't have any dry powder, and that makes it tough. But right now, because everything is down, there are, you know, everything that I'm high on is an even better deal because the price of it is low. So I love Apple, always have. I know a lot of people, especially the meme stock crowd and the crypto crowd, and a lot of, you know, the Cameron Grimeses of the world, you know, not him specifically or personally or anything like that, but, you know, To the Moon and GameStop millionaires and whatnot. A lot of the people who live that gimmick in real life say, oh, Apple's best days are behind them. But when they've had 40 years of best days and only the one most recent year being a little bit slower, it's tough to bet against them, especially because eventually they're going to be Pepsi to Tesla being Coke when it comes to the electric car deal. So I like Apple, and I like a lot of kind of entertainment, media, tech, communication stuff. I like Apple. I like Amazon. I like Comcast. I like Netflix. I like some gold-backed crypto. So not pure crypto like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there are a couple of names that I'm looking at, like AABB, which stands for currently Asia Broadband. I think they'd be well served to change their name, but AABB, and another one, DSCR, Discovery Metals. And these are penny stocks that, you know, hopefully you buy them at 1 penny, they go to 25 cents, and you've multiplied your money by 25.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. Again, was super looking forward to it. And I think you knocked it out of the park. So thank you for hanging out with me today, man. Before we wrap up, where can folks find you on the social medias?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at StudMuffinSays. You can find me on Instagram at Quintessential Studmuffin. You can find me on YouTube My channel is Joel Gertner. The 69-Minute Eargasm is a podcast I do. I do another one called That Was Extreme. And yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees. I've got a Joel Gertner page there. Cameo. You can get messages from me. And yeah, I'm around.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching episode number 303 of the Milo Beasley Show. We'll see you guys next week.